If you can get the live streaming, and then we're good to go.
We're now live on YouTube, everybody. So on your best behaviour. Right, okay, James, roll call, yes. And if members can say if they've got any declarations at the same time.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah, here, no declarations.
Councillor Brennan.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Bullman.
Here, no declarations.
Councillor Catchpole.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Harpley.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Holland.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Kelly.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor King.
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Morrow.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Nurden.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Pratton.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Riley. I don't think he can hear us at the moment. I'll ask him shortly. Councillor Shaw.
No declarations.
Thank you.
Right.
That's
okay.
complete, Chairman. Apart from Councillor Riley.
Much, James. Right. Apologies. Have we any apologies, officers?
We've got no apologies for absence, Chairman.
Right. Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of March, page 5. And I'll take matters arising therefrom at the same time. So do you agree the minutes are accurate? Any queries on the minutes? Yes, Steve. Sue Prutton.
I agree they were accurate.
Right, thank you. If
Thank
I
you.
have a seconder. Thank you, Ken Kelly. Right, anybody got any matters arising from those minutes?
Councillor Bullman, did you raise your hand? No.
No.
Councillor King.
You're mute, Councillor Bullman.
Sorry. Yes, a question, please. I think I raised at the last meeting 2 points. One that was answered in terms of the dividend from the one team. I also asked a question about sickness absence. I don't seem to have seen that. Is that something that's pending?
Chairman, that's with me to send out. I have got that and I will send that out. I apologise.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Peter.
Yeah,
right.
Fine.
Okay, any other matters arising from anybody?
We've got
Councillor David King.
Thank you very much. One of my points was actually covered by Peter, but I had 2 also. The second one was the mechanism for the new homes bonus consultation. I've not seen anything about the call-in mechanism that was discussed at the last meeting. Something that Steve was looking into.
Yeah, it's coming back. Hold on, it's coming back to me now. So that was, so the call-in will be at the point of the delegated decision. So I will check where that is at the moment. There'll be a portfolio holder 1 form completed for that decision that will go around, but I will just double check where that is because we're approaching the deadline date for that.
Thank you very much.
Any other matters arising from anybody?
Councillor Catchpole.
Sue Catchpole. Yep, Sue, where you go.
Thank you, Tony. I don't know if it's just me, but I thought we'd agreed at some point to have the outcome of the cabinet decisions in here with the last time's minutes so that we could just know what the outcome from the cabinet meeting was. Am I wrong? Did we not agree that we would do that?
I believe, Chairman, that
Sorry, go on, James.
that the chairman would update members at the meeting
Providing he can talk, providing
of the outcome of the previous meting.
Is the chairman, are you still unable to communicate, Steve, or are you with us now?
Thank you, Tony. I've had to log on via my iPad because there's a fault on the computer itself.
Okay. Well, where we are now is we've just taken matters arising,
right?
And Sue has just raised a question. What was it again, Sue? In case Steve didn't hear it.
I thought at some stage over the last ONS meetings, we'd agreed to have the conclusion that the Cabinet came to in here with the minutes so that we could see what actually came of our recommendations to Cabinet.
So while Steve, sorry, go on, Steve.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say you couldn't have that through the minutes because the minutes are of your meeting, not of the Cabinet meeting. But I think we agreed, Steve, as chairman, you would feed back as necessary at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly it, Emma. That is what we agreed.
Just
finish this on the minutes. So on the minutes, you've been through them. Right.
We've been through them.
I think also we need to do what we do at planning as well. So when the chair's here, just hold until we clear it, because otherwise the chair ends up with a bit of muddle. We've had this with Sue long before at planning. So hold on. Yeah, when there's a technical hitch, I mean, you know.
Anyway, it's nice to have you with us. Though we're now on chairman's announcements, which is good timing there, Steve. So it's over to you now.
I'm just coming back to this point that Sue's making. So we've got, just a minute, I just need to go back to the minute. So the minute we've got here, you're referring to the last Cabinet minute, Sue?
Hello?
Hello.
Do you mean Sue Catchpole? Because there's more than one Sue.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just realised that I thought at some point we'd agreed that we would know what happened to our recommendations, and perhaps if it was included as a sheet after the minutes, then we could see what happened. But if that's not possible, then verbal is fine.
Yeah, it was never agreed that it would be in a report. It was always that verbally, if there was an issue. So, for instance, if we had a recommendation, what I'm doing is I'll be reporting back on that recommendation. So the rest of what the Cabinet do always go through on the recommendations. It's completely pointless and wasting our time if I go over that. It's only if we have a recommendation and how that went. And at last, that's varied from the recommendations by the officers. So we had no variation from the office on the officers from the last Cabinet meeting. We made no adjusted recommendations. So there's literally nothing to say because we didn't have any additional recommendations at the last meeting. If we go through the whole Cabinet on the recommendations, it's just a complete pointless exercise. What's important for us is to know that the recommendations that we did want to pursue, how they went really, and we didn't have any variance on the recommendations. So Tony, I've got Sue here who wants to come in. We're back to me, Tony, aren't we? Sue?
Yes, it's just surely the information that Sue is seeking is in this Appendix B, is it not, that we've got with our papers today? Because in the final column, the comment column, overview and scrutiny recommendations to Cabinet, in the final column, it's got variations in there.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just, that's part of your annual report, so that won't be in every agenda. This is just because we've got the
I see, it's the summary for the year.
Yes,
but
exactly.
But the sort of information in that final column, is that what Councillor Catchpole is seeking to see every time?
No.
Or here.
No, because I'll be clear here. So it's what we agreed. We agreed this some time ago, and what we agreed some time ago was sticking to no written report from the Cabinet, because you do also get a Cabinet decision list that goes out to all members, whether you're known as or not, and members need to read that. So that's the decision list. The point for the committee is if we've made an amended recommendation, as we do sometimes, or a completely new recommendation, then the idea was I'd report back on how that went and how the Cabinet dealt with that. And at the last particular meeting, there wasn't any, that we varied from the officers' recommendations. So there isn't anything to report back. It's just on what we're doing as a committee, and that's it. And I did do that, by the way, when we did have a variance, and I'll continue to do so. Okay, brilliant. Otherwise, we just waste a lot of time, you see. Right, so where are we, Tony? We're on matters arising or chairman's announcements now?
Steve, could I just ask, could you declare any declarations of interest because you missed that part?
Yeah, I know. I really believe the committee should have held on because I'm here. But anyway, yeah, no declarations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'm present. Right, okay. So I'm just asking you again, Tony, where are we? Are we off of? Have we closed matters arising or?
I believe you have, Chairman. Yes, beyond Chairman's announcements now.
Yes. We're down to Chairman's announcements now. If you've got any.
Thank you. Yep, I have. Okie dokie. Right. So, excuse me. As you was aware, as members are aware, we had asked for the provision of leisure principles, the review of policy on that, the policy on that, to come before ONS for us to be involved at the policy stage, rather than just see the cabinet papers and give a recommendation to the cabinet. There's been a little bit of an issue in terms of timing around that. It's now going back in terms of the timing plan to the September meeting of the cabinet. Therefore, Overview and Scrutiny will review that paper in September as usual. But it's important that we are still going ahead with being involved with that policy at that policy stage development. So following that ONS meeting in June, where this would come back, possibly then the policy could be further developed from our contributions before it finally goes to the final ONS and also cabinet then. So the important thing here is it's been delayed, but the principle that we're involved early enough in terms of the policy is still being upheld, which is the important thing, committee. So that's all hunky-dory. And that's my announcement. Unless if any further questions on that, if not, I'll move on. Yep. Okey-dokey. And please bear with me, I'm on my iPad, so I'm going to rely upon the officers. You're putting hands up to tell me as well, because I really can't see many of you. Right, so any public speaking, James?
There's no public speaking, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to the apprenticeship levy. Lead officer Laura Smith, page 13. And I can't see you, Laura, but I believe you're here.
Yeah,
please fire away.
Yep, Chairman, it's Emma. I'm just doing a quick introduction because you've got two new officers in the room today. So I'm assuming as a committee you're going to be kind. We're not going to give them too hard a time. So you recall, I think was it January or February? I can't remember now. We brought in an update on the apprenticeship levy and you asked for some more information to come back in. So Laura and Joe have pulled this report together for you, which hopefully gives you an update. And they've provided you with a lot of information in here, and they've provided you, with that background, but they've also talked through kind of the current position, how COVID has unfortunately impacted on this, but then also kind of Broadland's response to that, and the county-wide response, and how we're going to propose to take all of that forward. So I will ask Laura and Joe to take you through the report, Chair.
Right. Are you going first, Laura?
Yeah, I think probably so. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Chair.
And by the way, Laura, it's nice to see you again, because I know you're a long-term officer of the council. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Long-term officer in Broadland. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say, apprenticeships have pretty much run through my blood for the past 30 years. So this is quite a big subject for me to cover. So I've condensed it as best I can, but I was asked to do a report on the implementation of the levy, which was happening in 16-17, but I thought it probably better to look at the previous year, because in 16-17 there was an impact. The apprenticeship levy was implemented, and that also came alongside the implementation of new standards and recontracting. So if you look at the evidence that is presented in tables under 2.13, you will see a surge in starts in 16-17. and that is a natural turbulence caused by movement of starts and funding. So that just explains that peak there. So coming back to the overall impact of the levy, it began when Doug Richard of Dragon's Den, you may remember, was commissioned to do a review of apprenticeships, because over the years, since they were started in 1994, they've undergone a series of changes in funding, quality, improvement, and suitability for purpose. So Doug Richard didn't carry out a review, he really carried out a whole suggestion for reform. So that resulted in the implementation of the levy in 16-17. And since then, it was intended to help improve starts, quality, and also complement the paper that was presented to government in 2015, which stated that they wanted 3 million new starts by 2020. So all of these things came together to hopefully improve that. So the levy was implemented, and I think from the table below we can see that it hasn't actually achieved the impact it wanted to. Overall in Norfolk, there has been a 230 reduction in overall starts in numbers and a 23% reduction. However, that doesn't mean that it's bad news for everybody. In fact, the higher and degree level apprenticeships have increased significantly, and the least impacted are the 25 plus. So what's happened as a result of all this is that it seems that the 16 to 18-year-old and 19 plus have probably not benefited that much, but the 25 plus have. Higher and degree level apprenticeships have really been taken up since the levy was implemented, and the lower levels probably not so much. The levy itself required larger businesses to contribute a significant amount of their pay bill towards the levy. They then could spend that levy on their own apprenticeship training. And many of those chose to spend that on higher level apprenticeships, as I think we all would. So it seems that the impact of that has been good for the higher level, but not so good for the lower level. I don't know if there's any more I can tell you on that. There's so much I could tell you about the background of this, but I think it's probably best if I leave it to you to ask the questions. I've given you quite a long history of where apprenticeships came from and the journey that they've been on. They have improved in quality, and they certainly have become much wider available than they ever were before. Basically, it's a good structure. It's work-based learning. It's a combination of knowledge, understanding, and skills. And if applied well by everybody involved, it's a brilliant way for people to improve their social mobility and their first the first step on the ladder to employment. There are several challenges, and we are involved as a council. I'm involved in several networks and several projects to address this. So I think that's probably all I need to say. Is that all right?
Thank you. Yeah, Joe, do you want, before we come in, Nigel, Joe, do you want to supplement here?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to support what Laura's mentioned already. So my role is in the OD team, so I look after the apprenticeship scheme within one team. So just to update really and bring to life, 3.9 in the report, where we've confirmed that we've currently got 9 apprentices in total across one team at the moment. We're currently working on our apprenticeship strategy across one team at the moment. So we're looking at a range of options. So that can include continuing to offer new entrants apprenticeships going forward, looking at investing in our existing staff through the apprenticeship levy, and there's also the option of levy transfers that we're currently exploring as well at the moment. So there's a range of things we're looking into at the moment with regards to apprenticeships.
Thank you, Joe. Right, I've got Nigel Shaw first, Nigel Brennan, then Natasha, then Sue Holland, then Ken. Let me just get the list down here. Well, you be firing away, Nigel Shaw.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I note that the higher levels are going well, but what's the proposed, I don't know, what is the proposal to bring up the lower level ones? Because as with the majority of schemes when it regards, say, universities and colleges and high schools, it's the universities, for instance, that will get the main benefit, and it gradually feeds down to the lower levels, which get very little benefit. So can you explain to me how this is going to be worked so it can be improved?
At the moment, there seems to be, this is my opinion, there seems to be a strong appetite for higher level apprenticeships from employers, though, and that cannot be denied. It's a good programme. I believe there is some review as to how government, the levy money should be spent, and to make sure that the money is being directed rightly, and it's not just being given to people who are already in management positions who just need to top up a little bit of knowledge. It really should be spent on people who are on a learning journey. The pathway into level, the intermediate level is usually the level 2, and that's the 16 to 18, usually the entry level that young people take. And I have to say it's been the one that has been the most successful for the non-academic learners. And the whole delivery of that sector is challenged at the moment. The level 2s that were in place as frameworks were more accessible to young people than the new standards. The new standards have also been revised by the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and they've reweighted them. So the things that have happened there, it's made the funding less for providers to deliver at those levels. So there does seem to be a tendency now towards encouraging young people up to 18 to stay in some form of structured education led by probably more full-time, and then look to them starting into employment and employment situations at a level 3. The appetite seems to be developing more level 3 new standards. As the old frameworks taper out, they're being replaced with new standards. So as the level 2 timeline for the old frameworks tapers out, they are being replaced with fewer equivalent level 2 standards. However, there is a technical certificate that's now being introduced through schools, which is a sort of reverse apprenticeship. It is at level 3 at the moment, and they are being piloted. So it is a bit of a watch this space. But the idea is that the young person should spend the majority of their education time in the institution, but they will spend some time during the course of their curriculum year in a designated employment situation. So that work experience is being monitored and delivered in a qualitative way, rather than just a little bit of work experience that isn't very well controlled. So it will be part of the whole T-level curriculum. So there are things in place to support that. I think there is a concern for the young people that are not academically driven. And those are the young people who could drop out or not do well from 16 onwards. But then again, on the other side of that, employers are still saying that young people leaving school at 16 are not yet ready to take up employment. So there is an issue there about that personal development stage and where that can happen best, I think.
Yes, I concur.
Okay, Nigel. Ken Keddy, you're next.
Thank you, Laura. A really good report. I've just noticed this morning that we had a Kickstart scheme being started with Norfolk County Council. I gather that what they're going to do now, the government is going to cover the minimum wages for 16 to 24 hours for up to 25 hours a week. And it's really nice to see that. I'm just wondering what impact that would have. My comments for Broadland, especially as Nigel has said, is I'm a former 15-year-old Royal Air Force apprentice. Now, if you look to what they do on the continent, of where vocational selection is picked up early in the schools at about 15, 16 and advanced there, they're the ones with our small business, you know, which is what really the biggest employer is in Broadland, is where we should be focusing our efforts. Whether the education system can cope with that, I don't know, but I'd like to see Broadland more into the schools, trying to direct people to vocational, pick the selections at an early age, ready, and the 16-year-olds should be our priority. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Here.
Thank you. Yep.
Well, I completely agree with you. You know, I do. I'd just like to say that we are strongly involved with the Education Advisors Network, which is run by the LEP. We meet with them regularly, and we are looking at how we can encourage more work experience. The whole idea is to engage employers to promote good jobs opportunities in a really good visual way. So we're looking at ways where we can probably bring those careers more to life in the classroom and actually engage those young people with the feel of those things and make sure that they, you know, that they are fully engaged and preparing to get a good experience out of their own sort of normal life structure and experience. So there is a lot of work going on. And I think that more recently, there's been lots of standards set within schools to make sure that good and broad careers advice is available, and they are being inspected on those kinds of things as well. So things are happening, but I have to say that employers really do need to step up here, because more and more the skills white paper is now saying and encouraging all education providers to take into account what employers want. Now that, for me, if employers don't step up and say what they want in a coordinated way, then their voice won't get heard on the big stage, and we will carry on not meeting the needs. So if anything, that's something that really does need to be coordinated. And we have a lot of small to medium businesses whose voices tend to get missed. So some way we have to help them coordinate that voice, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Have you any idea how we're going to actually achieve that? Is that something that we can push as an ONS, as a task and time target, or what would you think would be a way to go forward?
Well, there are lots of national initiatives at the moment. There's such things as financial initiatives for starting apprentices, and we belong also to the Apprenticeship Norfolk Network, where there's lots of campaigns there to use initiatives, their promotions. They have stuff that will go around and talk to new businesses. So we are actually quite involved and have been for a very long time, as we were a provider ourselves. So we were always engaged with a local network of employers. We had a good quality provision. So our word is good. So we're in a good position, I think, to spread the word. I just say that we just need to keep doing it. You know, it's not one campaign that will do it. It's continually spreading the word that this is a good way to plan your future workforce.
Thank you very much, Laura. Good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Nigel Brennan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just a couple of minor comments on the report, its content itself. Section 1.3. Where we're dealing with the calculation pernickety, but 80, 110 and 30 actually totals 220, not 230.
Oh, sorry.
Which might have an effect on the actual percentage as well.
What happened I don't really know what's happened now. I do apologise. God, embarrassed. What can I say?
That's right. It proves I read the papers. That's all.
I think what it does say, they're really in there. Yeah, it does. Oh, yes, very, very embarrassed about that. I'm sorry. Also, I will point out that if we're on confession time, on 2.10, it does, the last part of that over the page, they said they are required to pay a 10% contribution. That was, in fact, reduced to a 5% contribution. to help employers engage. So that means that a small employer who doesn't pay the levy, they don't need to pay a 10% contribution towards the overall cost. It's a 5%, and that was something that the government brought in to address the shortfall in take-up.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Okay.
you said something else. In the end, I think I take on board what you're saying, but I don't think its impacts on the overall sort of like trend. You know,
Yeah, that's
still
fine. Yeah,
away,
yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at it from an outsider's point of view as well. That
Thank you.
anybody
I
else
will.
looking,
I will.
Yeah, that's all right. Just anybody looking in are going to say, well,
I'll address that. They'll say that I'm useless at maths. Sorry.
That's all right. No, you need a spreadsheet. Yeah, just the other comment. Just again, it's a very minor comment. We kind of get an agreement that we don't have what dare I call acronym creep. When we look at 3.4 and 3.5, we've got abbreviations being used, but without any initial explanation of what they are. So we've got SME, NALEP, DWP. I'm sure we all know what that is, but there is a kind of, I believe, an agreement within all council papers that the first time an abbreviation is used, that it's actually spelled out what it means, so that anybody who may not know is going to know in future. Again, not just might appear pernickety, but we've talked about it before. So possibly if that can be addressed at any time in the future, that would be lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Nigel. Okay, Natasha, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what I was going to say has already been commented on. You probably know where I'm going with this. It's something I've banged on about quite a lot. This report, I think it reveals a lot of what we'd all kind of been expecting, really. I mean, 95% plus for higher and degree level. When you see that 16 to 18-year-olds are minus 25.8%. I mean, I know education and various different schemes evolve over time, but you think of apprenticeships as being a first step to learning and things like that. Anecdotally, what we're hearing is that a lot of it is actually older people who are using these schemes to top up their education, to boost their careers. It's not about a first step. It's about boosting them. So they've already got an advantage by having life skills and work skills. And it seems here that the younger people who are the most disadvantaged are being hit hardest by this. And not wishing to be sort of disparaging about education and degrees. I mean, I'm all in favour of lifelong learning, but some people are just not academically minded. So if they're missing out on this and it's being pushed more of a higher education level at those kind of people, where does it leave all the young people who can't get skills training like they used to? Do they just get lumped in with the government's Kickstarter program and go and work for Marks and Spencer's for 6 months? Because that's what it seems to be. They're being left behind because this clearly seems to be aiming now at people or employers who want to be having degree educated staff on the cheap, and it's boosting, I would probably say it's likely to be boosting men more than women as well, who are already in a better position to do this on the side because they've got the time to do this outside of work. Now, I can't see any stats that correlate that age and higher degree level, but everything else seems to be pointing towards that, and anecdotally that's what we're hearing. And I'm just feeling really quite disappointed for the young people who are the most disadvantaged already, particularly the younger working class kids who aren't particularly academically minded. Where are they going to be? It's more of a comment and a moan rather than a question, well, I'm afraid.
There's a couple of things there.
I think, Laura, if you could come back, it'd be very helpful, actually.
I don't mind at all. And also, the other question I didn't respond to, and it joins up with this, was Kickstart. We are engaged. We are actually a gateway provider for Kickstart, and we hopefully have our new vacancies hopefully being promoted this week. It's been a long process to get through the DWP engine, but we're now there. So we hope that some young people will be able to engage through that. I have to say, it is promoted for 16 to 24, but unfortunately, young people have to be on universal credit to be eligible, and not many 16 to 18-year-olds will fall into that bracket. So it's probably going to help many of those. Although there are last year's 16 to 18-year-olds that fell through the net who will be able to benefit. So there will be a good chunk of those that will be able to be picked up. The businesses that we've been working with that are going to participate, be partners, with, I think without exception, they will have jobs there at the end of them, and we're going to work with them to help them engage those jobs. That's our aim, and we are looking after that as a team as well. So that's one thing we're doing there. The point you made about what the benefits to the older, there aren't any finite. There will be data that will come out about the nature and the background of who's benefited, but this is a result of putting employers in the centre of what they want. Employers are saying they want their levy money spent on higher degree qualifications and abilities in their staff. So I would, from a business point of view, they're probably taking that option, and they are able to do that. They have been empowered by the levy, and I also think by the standards that they probably have been part of creating for themselves, which in fairness, probably any business would do. Yeah. The issue is how that marries up with our ambitions and I think our responsibilities for our young people. And there undoubtedly is a concern for those young people at 16 to 18 who don't fall into the ordinary full-time education category, but are incredibly skilled when you get them into the workplace. So it does worry me. It worries me too. And we are working hard to make sure that that group are not overlooked. At the moment, we would see that impact probably in our local, not in education, employment and training figures, but they are yet to emerge as a result of what happens when furloughs stop and 16 to 18-year-olds may not be able to return to their workplace. So we're still in and I think that we will probably be told that we need to see more data before any real action is taken. I wish I could say that real stuff is happening. The issue, we know the issue is there, but how big it is and what needs to be done to respond to it, whether whole new provision needs to be put in place. Also, I think there's, sorry to go on about this, but there will be funding for skills and development. We know that funding will be on the horizon for this. And I am hoping that there will be lots of opportunity there to deliver lots of small projects to support our local young people who fall out. That would be good.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you've made some really good comments there about skills, and I'm sorry to butt in again, Steve, but coming back, a lot of things. What I'm seeing is the same employers. I don't want to keep saying Marks and Spencers, but they seem to be the same companies that will get into any scheme, whether they're targeting single parents or young people. You know, where are their actual long-term jobs that are coming out? Yes, they are getting a job, but is there a career in it? Is it just filling a gap for that particular employer? It's all about what the employer wants. What about the people who actually want to keep a job and have career progression? Because it does seem to be the same big names coming up time and time again. They're targeting job centres. They're using gingerbreads to try and get single parents doing all of these things. Now it's the young people. You know, what about centering what the young people want? I'm just going off of one because I'm cross. Ignore me. Sorry, I'll be quiet now.
Okay, Laura, it's okay, Natasha, no problem at all. Nigel, keep seeing your hand go up. You've been in once, but I will let you back in again, but you're just now bottom of the list, okay? So if you can just hold on. And I'm just going to take a note of Dave as well. Just a second, Dave, I've got you now. Just one comment as we go, Laura, just picking this up. If we go back over the last 4 or 5 decades, even longer, the whole issue of apprenticeships in this country and coming through for vocational training under the situation in terms of graduates that was deemed to be required for the country, go back far enough in terms of the old grammar school system and then the pre-comprehensive. So all those figures originally were worked out on the basis of what's deemed reasonable for the country in terms of education that you need to pull through for these top jobs. Now that's all shifted around. It shifted around after comprehensive, and then we moved into a system to support vocational training for this age group, 16 to 18. And it's been the primary task of government to support that, because employers on their own, particularly smaller employers, can't support that on their own. So there's been initiative after initiative from successful governments to promote schemes, push schemes to underpin the need for that skill gap. And there is a skill gap in terms of this country. There's also a gap in terms of meaningful jobs at the end of these schemes, some of these schemes as well. If you look at some of the other countries, the point that Ken was making, it's a completely different ballgame. There's a contrived policy that aims to support that. The problem that we're seeing here, I believe, Laura, from these stats, is what we suspected, which is at the stage when the levy changes, you have an upsurge. That upsurge was entirely predictable because it meant that people were trying to get that funding in place to do what they was going to do for particularly this age group that we're talking about. The employers that are using the scheme to enhance people already in employment and already in jobs for degrees, standard, whatever, is one thing. But this category, in terms of the 16, 18 moving forward, there's an upsurge because of the funding that indicated there's going to be a problem coming forward, and there is a problem. It's dropped off, and the stats predict, and the stats prove that actually. So whilst businesses will choose to do what they want with the scheme as it's outlined by the government and the change to the levy system, it was always predictable that this would occur. And they are doing what they will do best for their organisations. And I understand Broadland's also, participate in that for the right reasons as well. But this other category, I think all the evidence from what you're saying here is pointing to an issue. So I'm just sort of halfway in the match here in terms of the time we've got available. I'm just sort of rounding up that little bit, I think, from what's being said, what you're saying, just to help the discussion along. So the next member in is Sue Holland.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you for this. I just want to echo everything everybody's already said about the young people. As a retired teacher, I'm well aware that I'm very concerned that we miss out on that 16-year-old age group, and I think that's something we should focus on. But my question is actually about the dedicated manager trying to encourage levy payers to support non-levy paying employers. What I'm asking is, I realise that only helps 19 plus, so it's slightly unrelated, but I'm asking, is that working? Is that helping to get more apprenticeships in smaller businesses? Unless I've misunderstood, of course. But if you could answer that, would be great. Thanks.
Well, no, you're quite right. What it does, it stops by taking a levy share, the recipient small business does not have to pay the contribution, so they get it completely for free. So that's one of the things. I've spoken to the manager in charge, and she says that overall she's probably worked with, I think, about 40 large businesses, whether that's successful transfer. But to encourage businesses to do that, it's a big undertaking as well. So there's lots of technical stuff that they have to get involved with. And many of them are using it themselves, surprisingly. There's not a lot, as much spare levy as would be expected, apparently. So, and many of them are using it for themselves. But I just think a shocking thing that she told me was last year, £300 million went back to the Treasury of unused levy. And that will go back into the system, and it won't come back through apprenticeships. So we need to make that work and probably talk to businesses. This is all part of a campaign to encourage people to take up the opportunities of small business. Having said that, it could still then be spent on a small business taking up the opportunity to put one of their current staff through a degree at no cost at all. And that's a win-win for everybody involved, really, I suppose, because one of our residents has now got a degree that they wouldn't have got before. So that probably, heightens their quality of life. But again, it's not offering the opportunity to a new person. So I don't think the levy is that levy transfer will solve the problem. And it's a little bit too early to say the major impact it's had. But she has been having some reasonable take-up, but not as much as she wanted. Some organisations that should probably be sharing or not. They're just saying, well, it's just too much bother, we'll let it go back. It's too much technical issue, we can afford to let it go back, which is shocking to me, but they're doing it.
Can I also ask then, is this, has the government, is the government aware of what this impact this is having, and and it's just ignoring it, or is there anything in the pipeline, or can we do anything to highlight this and to try to push it towards the younger people? Because that, I am particularly given the pandemic, I really fear for them. It's been a terrible year anyway. We're going to have a massive problem with 16 to 24-year-olds who are struggling big time here, and somehow we have to find a way of doing, helping to do something about it. So is there anything that we can do to put pressure on government or something that will help us to focus that energy into the younger people?
To be honest, as a local authority, I don't believe there is a lot of impact we can make, because this is at a very, very high level. I mean, this is set in stone. And however, obviously the challenge has not gone unnoticed, because there are more financial incentives now available, and will be until September, I think. Rishi announced more financial incentive for taking on a young apprentice. So somebody could actually probably make up to achieve up to about 3,000. So there's financial support available. I think we don't really know what this impact is going to be like. We suspect that, as I said before, when young people come off furlough and businesses can't take them back in because they aren't there anymore, then we will see even more numbers, I fear, into this group of displaced young people. Some young people will be halfway through an apprenticeship that they need to complete somewhere. Some young people were just redundant with nowhere to complete. So yes, I agree, there is going to be turbulence, but it is not going unnoticed. At the moment, it's financial support and also support from the Apprenticeship Norfolk Network. And we are involved in as many groups as we possibly can be to influence where future funding may be spent as well. So as part of the workforce work stream that we're involved with, and also various networks across Norfolk, we are privy to sort of funding opportunities on the horizon. And I think we need to maximise any opportunity we can get from them to support our young people locally. And we will work closely with county council groups to do that as well. So we have our finger on the button ready to press them when they become available. But at the moment, I think that the data has yet to be put into the system, machinated, and actions come out. But we are on the spot. We are on the case.
Thank you for that, and thank you for keep pushing it on our behalf.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Dave, I believe you're next.
Thank you very much. Now, when it comes to apprenticeships, I'm trying to get a Kickstarter sorted out for my office. I'm doing a little bit of an expansion when we come out of COVID. But one of the difficulties that I found is I've been told I can't have my get a placement until my staff are back off furlough. They're both shielding, so they're still shielding until the 1st of April. So they will be coming back sometime after tomorrow. So that's caused me a delay in getting somebody. But this was the principal concern of my point, is that when you're trying to attract 19-year-olds into apprenticeships, the minimum wage for a 19-year-old or over in the first year of their apprenticeship is £4.15, which is obviously half of what the national minimum wage is. I know plenty of people that are 19 or between 19 and 24, shall we say, that have a young family. And how are you supposed to support a young family on £4.15 an hour, which is all the minimum that the employers have to give? So I think there are some fundamental strategic flaws in how to actually access this. And actually, this is something I wouldn't mind talking to Natasha about, because I can see the very disapproving look there. I actually think it's actually quite insulting that you're expecting somebody to work £4.15 an hour, and that is what the employers are going to give. So unless there's some fundamental changes in the way that these apprenticeships are done for the over 19s, there is going to be less of an uptake. Because in all honesty, how many of us could actually put our hands up and say that at the age of 19, we would be prepared to work for £4.15 an hour?
Yeah, well, Dave, this is the whole issue. When when you go back to the original concept of apprenticeships, it's primarily aimed around vocation. You go into an employer, you serve your 2-3 year apprenticeship, at your 25% or 20% of the actual wage, and then of course at the end of it, you've got a job, skilled level. This is the whole issue that's going on. So it's this lower level of the apprenticeships. The apprenticeship levy, apprenticeship schemes has morphed into a whole range of other things in terms of supporting people already in employment, people moving on in terms of education. This group in the stats, I'm going to keep coming back to it because the stats are here on the levy scheme for this other group of people, 16 to 18 moving into that kind of apprenticeship, have dropped off. They've dropped off. Now, I know Sue Hondre's point about what the government do, and then Laura was saying, well, I'm not quite sure on the furlough. I think we're separating out the two issues. There's one issue in terms of furlough, what will happen at the end of this. That is one issue, but the fundamental issue in terms of the original reason why we asked for this to go under retirement task was the effects of the levy scheme. Because we knew in 2019, May 2019, when we originally agreed to do a retirement task on this, from the officers that was existing then, Laura, Hamish, etc., and others, that the levy had already impacted on what was going on, because the figures went back to 2016, 17, as you quite rightly outlined. So it's that section and that level and those people moving forward, Dave, as you just said, then into full-term employment. And yes, well, you're getting paid this amount because you're training, but then you'll get this amount, and it'll be a higher skilled amount, which is more than the minimum wage. So focus is really around that. The furlough scheme, what happens after that is another issue. Caroline, you're next. And then, oh, sorry, I thought I saw your hand go up, Caroline. Oh, right, okie dokie. It must have been just your thumb like this. And Nigel, you was then, I did have you down as a second bite of the cherry. So come in, Nigel.
Thank you.
And then Grant.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from what Natasha was saying, because the thing is, the companies that are applying for this money to take on apprentices tend to be the same companies each time. Now, I think that the thing needs to be promoted to other companies that don't take up these offers, because the thing is, if you can get them to come in and offer different types of apprenticeship, especially for the younger ones, I think you're onto a winner, quite honestly. And years ago, I went to a meeting at City College with councillors from all over the county, and it was a workshop, and we were talking about, this idea of 16 to 24-year-olds. And I said, well, if you imagine the majority of colleges these days, they're like pseudo universities, and they've disregarded the apprenticeships. And I went into detail about it at the time, and a lot of ears pricked up, and especially one Labour lady. 3 months later, it became Labour policy. It was kind of unusual. I'm surprised the Conservatives didn't do it.
Well, there's the shock statement of the century in Broadland, Nigel. Surprised Conservatives didn't do Labour policy. I mean, we've got to keep a sense of humour as well, of course. Yeah, no, I understand the serious point you make there, Nigel. So is there anyone else before?
Excuse me, Chairman, you have got some comments in chat, but I don't believe you can probably see that because you're on your iPad. So you've got, I'm not sure if these people still wish to speak. So we've got Sue Prutton, Grant Nurden, Sue Catchpole, and Tony Adams.
Brilliant. Okie
I
dokie.
think that's it.
So I think Grant was first.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't see you, Sue. So I
was in front of him. It's a very, very brief one. It's one sentence, 3.9 on the report. Currently within the one team, we have 9 apprentices in total serving on Broadland District Council. Please do tell us what range of disciplines they're actually spread across.
Yeah, could somebody give that information?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I can come in and give you a bit more context. We've got a range of apprentices currently in place at the moment. So predominantly, if I say 8 of the 9 are in kind of professional support roles. So for example, marketing, community hub, help hub, business support. And we have 1 operational apprentice in place currently that's within our wider kind of depot and grounds maintenance team.
Oh, good.
Just to give a bit of a flavour. So we have got quite a nice variety of apprentices that are currently in place at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. Right. So I'll now proceed to Grant, Sue, because now I can actually see him. Thanks, Sue. And good question, by the way, I thought. Grant, far away, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of questions and some comments. First one is that, Laura, you mentioned that you're working with employers. Is there opportunities for young people to take up an apprenticeship with multiple employers, those that are in the small or the micro business? And if so, is there something that the council is promoting? That's the first question. Second question is, how are the new T levels going to tie in with formal apprenticeships? Do they, when they leave or finish their T levels, do they come out as a qualified apprentice or as a qualified T level? I don't know how the two tie together. Then just a comment that I agree with Councillor King and Councillor Hartley, because I had an apprentice. Well, he wasn't an apprentice for me, but he was doing an apprenticeship. He was working for me, and he was working at a local takeaway. In other words, he had 3 jobs in order to supplement his earnings. So that was a way in which some of them, the younger people particularly, are trying to survive. And then the last one is paragraph 4.1. Proposed action will be brought into committees during 2020. Wasn't sure whether that was 2021 or not. So those are just my points or questions. Thank you.
Okay. Could Laura or do you want to come back on any of that? I couldn't quite hear you, Grant, myself, so I'm a bit. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if it's your end or mine, but did one of the officers want to come back on some points there?
Do you want me to?
Thank you.
Yeah. Just one point here, and I want to pick up on something that Councillor King brought up earlier on. So he's not there now, but it is interesting. It was about the low wage for 19 plus and why would they work for the minimum allowance. It is indeed lower than anything. The employer can choose to pay more than that, and one would hope that a good employer would do that. Also, the allowance is only payable for the first year. All the standards will last longer than a year, so they have to be brought up to the minimum wage in the second year, because by that time they are deemed to be giving a contribution to the employer rather than being a learner. So that's just something I thought I ought to just clarify, just in case. The thing about Councillor Naden, the multiple employers. Well, there are a couple of programs that are able to do that. There is an organisation called TRACK, which is like an employer, sort of like agency, an employer training agency, where they are the employer, but they send their learners or their apprentices to different businesses who can't take on the full responsibility of taking on a full apprenticeship. So they will go out to those businesses to learn their trades, but they will be managed by the key employer, which is Track. So there are programs like that. There is also a talent share project going on where a similar type of thing is happening, but with adults. So at the moment, they're trying to look at how different employers can share skills during on and off peak areas. So engineers who have a high peak in winter and a low peak summer and vice versa, they can share their staff. So there is something happening with that at the moment. When that pilot's off the ground and lessons are learned, it's hope that apprenticeships can be attached to that that thinking. And also we are strongly involved at the moment with a pilot program that's to do with the engineering industry, and it's to bring together smaller groups of apprenticeships with more employer engagement and more conversation between the providers to help make more bespoke programs to employers' needs. So there are lots of things happening that should enable those talent share things to carry on. So I think you've got a strong point there, because lots of small employers can't take on the full responsibility, because there's a lot of responsibility and ownership. T-levels, how they will blend with apprenticeships, to be honest, I really don't know. It's something that I need to go and question, but pilots are in place at the moment, and I'm hoping lessons will be learned and how they will then dovetail into existing apprenticeships, because you've got an apprenticeship at level 3 and you will have a T-level at level 3. Without doubt, the apprenticeship is going to be better skilled because they're in the workplace all the time. But will their knowledge and understanding raise the level? So we have to watch the pilots, I think.
Okie dokie. Right, so Sue Catchpole next.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, really. I was a little bit dismayed to hear that the technical certificates mean that there will be more time in the classroom with short periods in the workplace. And to me, that kind of goes against how I imagine the 16 to 18-year-olds would really have it if they could choose. I would have thought that part of the reason that they choose apprenticeship route is to get out of the classroom. I just wondered what Laura's opinion on that was.
I was concerned about that group, and I still am a little bit, but again, we have to wait to see what the pilot produces. And also from some conversations with people who are participating in the pilots, some employers, they too are finding that waiting a little bit difficult to manage themselves, because it's more comfortable for them to house a young person with them 4 days a week and then they have the 1 day off, rather than the other way around, because the learning is fragmented. So then there's a choice, well, do you put all of that required on-job learning in sort of like 2 lump weeks so they get that bit? But is that going to give the weight and the meat and the value and the real, brainy experience that they really require to achieve this ambition that employers seem to have, that young people will be ready to take on a job of work from the moment they step into their workplace? And that's, this is the sort of the argument. Are our young people at 16 mature enough to take on board? And employers are saying, well, they don't want to turn up, they don't understand rules. And I would debate that. I know lots of young people who have completely flourished and done wonderful things, and I could bring young adults to meet you now, and you'd be proud of every one of them. So they do. I don't know. We have to keep pushing, and I've been doing it for 30 years, so I'll keep going. So, but we are involved. We are as much involved as we can, and I will be bringing any projects or any benefits that I think that are around. I will be bringing them back, and we will be looking at what we can do to get behind them, so long as you obviously you support us. And I think there's a definite appetite to keep apprenticeships going generally with whatever we can do.
Right, thank you, Laura. I've got Tony Adams and then Caroline, and I'm going to sum up because it's now 11:10, so we need to get to a conclusion and get to the recommendation after that. So Tony and then Caroline.
Well, Chairman, it seems to me the problems first arose when the government changed the system which in my view, was working quite successfully and introduced this new levy system. I can remember, and those that were elected later won't, but we used to have our very own apprentice scheme on the Carrowbreck site, which was recognised as one of the best in the country at that time and catered for youngsters, bricklaying, glass making, you name it. They were sent out to employers who had agreed to give them training, etc., etc. And it all seemed to go drastically wrong once we introduced this levy system. And I think, to me, it's an absolute classic case of if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. And it wasn't broke, and the fix hasn't worked. Just a quick question on with those comments to you, Laura. Do you think there would be any mileage in reintroducing our own apprentice scheme at Broadland on Carrowbreck or somewhere else along the lines that we did up until the time we ceased to do so once this new levy system came in? Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. I was very much at the heart of that delivery. In fact, I was one of the managers who delivered that very successful apprenticeship programme. And it was with great regret that we handed that programme back. And that was with great consideration as well. And many hearts were broken at the time. But we did that because we could see what was on the horizon. We knew that times were going to get tight. Funding was going to be directed and coming from employers. And that would have put us in a very difficult position. We were already being supported strongly by the council to deliver the high quality that we delivered. And going forward, we would have to then become a very competitive organisation with other training providers, which didn't seem to be in the spirit of what we were wanting to do. We wanted to provide a service to help our young people, businesses and residents. We didn't want to or ever intend to go into commercial enterprise in competition. And we could also see that there were going to be various tensions on the horizon, which sadly, and I'm really sad to say that the crystal ball was correct there. So in answer to, I would love for us to be able to deliver the same kind of provision that we did before. But we know we're all sensible adults. We have to look at the funding. And clearly this reform and the levy was introduced to address, well, popularity to some degree of some apprenticeships, I suppose, and fund them, and also to put the responsibility into the hands of the employers for whom this education really is supposed to be feeding. And they're the ones in the end who benefit from skills education. You know, they benefit from the skills that the young people acquire. So I'd love to be able to say yes, Councillor Adams, but it would be a completely wrong move.
Okie dokie. Yeah, and I remember the Carrowbreck scheme, and I absolutely, it was a first-class scheme, wasn't it, Laura? And yes. I go back that far with Tony.
Very proud.
But, we are where we are. So Caroline, you're next.
I didn't actually put my hand up, Tony. I think I'm going to have to stop putting my hands to my face or something. But I would say I'm quite impressed with Laura's enthusiasm and passion for this. Well done, Laura. I'm sure apprenticeships are really well in your hands. So thank you very much.
Well, we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Well, just in terms of summing up now, it's been a really, really good debate coming off of a well thought out and constructed report, apart from a typo, which anybody can make. Anybody can make typos. Yeah, so and what's really good about this in terms of piece of overview and scrutiny work as well for examination is the stats and the figures, and also that explanation at the beginning, Laura, on what is the brief here for this today as well. You know, in terms of the pre-levy, what led up to that surge, and then the dip, and what we've had ever since in terms of this 16 to 18 group in particular, and the whole purpose of what the apprenticeship and levy schemes are supposed to be doing in terms of promoting that. And one has to ask the question, in this country, if this scheme is actually doing its job, then why do we still have a skills shortage? Why do we still have a skills shortage of carpenters, electricians, plumbers in this country? And you still need people to come from abroad to fill those roles? There is clearly something wrong. And does that mean that employers don't want to have these skilled people? They have to have them. So clearly there's a problem in supporting apprenticeship schemes moving forward. Everybody spoke, I think most people for sure on my county as I've been going, have come back onto this levy issue. We've been able to separate out the other key issues in terms of, well, there is use for the scheme, useful use within the scheme for people re-educating already in employment, fine, that's there. But there is clearly an issue which has been demonstrated here and by yourself, Laura, amplified by other members as well, around this levy scheme in particular, around the 16 to 18. And what I'm actually, we've got a recommendation here, but what I'm actually going to put to the committee and test water on this, if we could also have another recommendation as well, and that is that, bearing in mind the discussion we've had and what we know is going on with the 16 to 18-year-old, that we have a view, because councils, there's some member asked a question, and I think it was Sue Holland actually, you know, how is government aware of what's going on? It gets feedback from employers. It also gets feedback from authorities as well. So feedback from authorities is quite important. However, a lot of authorities kind of go, well, we're an authority. Does our voice count? And this really happens all up and down the country, you know. And I think on a situation like this, it's reasonable for us also to make some representation back through the Secretary of State, saying in the light of this experience around the levy for 16 to 18-year-olds, we believe it's time to reevaluate that part of the scheme based upon this evidence. And I would like to move that as a recommendation today, but to support that adequately, what we then need is, and we did do this in the past actually on something else, and we had a research officer involved in this as well, is that we had the officers, yourself, Laura and Joe, say in this situation, then go away, come back with a paper that would then support that in terms of submission for the council going forward. And then that comes back to ONS, and then ONS can then re-chomp that back over and then possibly recommend that through to the council or cabinet to go off to the Secretary of State as a process wise. I think that all fits with governance as well, Emma, if we went down that road with the checks and balances as well. So I'd like to propose that as a
I'll second that for you, Steve. Yeah.
Oh, I've got about 4 seconders here. Okay, so okay, I'll put that to the vote then. Is that and James, you've got the form of words there, I think. Hello, James.
Sorry, Chairman. Well, I've got that you want to make the committee would want to make representation to the Secretary of State in the light of the effect of the apprenticeship level levy on 16 to 17-year-olds. Is there any more that you'd like to add
19,
to that?
isn't it?
It's 19, yeah.
19.
That age group, yeah. And that we asked the officers to come back with a paper that would demonstrate that factually for the ONS to
that you can make representation to government. Yeah.
Yeah. To come back to another ONS meeting to further consider that paper. Okie dokie. So I'll put that to the vote. Then it's been seconded by about 4 or 5 people here. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. And just moving on to the other part of the recommendation, sorry, the recommendation that was in the paper, the committee is asked to review and comment on the findings of the findings and support the continued building of existing partnerships with local stakeholders, develop and deliver initiatives to reduce further slippage in apprenticeship recruitment and to ensure we remain inclusive programme for all. So we could still adopt that, because the other recommendation is not oppositional to that, James. So we could still support that because there are partnerships that we're still involved with. Yeah,
that's
does that
correct,
make sense?
Chairman. Yes, it does.
Okay, so I moved 7.1 as well. Yeah. Okay, all those in favour?
That looks to be unanimous.
That's unanimous again, yes.
Thank you, Rod. Well, I'd just like to say to Joe and Laura and Emma, thanks very much for this report. It's been very, very good day actually on this, and there's been so many people commenting, good bit of scrutiny, and I think a rational, logical direction as well for us. So thanks once again, and look forward to you and your paper at another meeting. And I'd just like to say to everybody, we've got 2 items left, so just going to have a 6-minute comfort break, and then we should be able to finish hopefully by 12. Okay, thanks for officers. Thanks very much.
Chairman,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
if all members turn their video and go on to mute.
Thanks very much.
Sue, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Apologies, we are still live streaming, by the way, just to let you know.
I've just changed my headphone. I couldn't hear very well, so I was just checking whether it was working.
Yeah,
Thank
I can
you.
hear you.
Sorry.
Hope you don't mind me saying, but on that apprenticeships thing, why can't we get involved with people like the National Trust? Because I know they do take on apprentices, and there must be other organisations of similar types which also do. And I don't think everybody wants a graduate. Let's face it, many graduates end up working in McDonald's and coffee bars.
Can I just remind committee we are still live streaming, please?
James, officers, how are we looking for attendance at the moment?
We've just got a couple of councillors waiting on. So we've got Councillor Nerden and Councillor King.
Okay, we're well over our comfort break time. So I suggest we'll make a start again, and could you watch out for Grant and David, please, and then notify us if they're back in the meeting, obviously.
Yep, Councillor Nerden's just come back.
Oh, hello, Grant. Just about to start again. So we'll get back to our agenda. So we'll pick back up on, so we move now to item 9, Overview and Scrutiny Committee Annual Report 21. Sue White's going to present, and I can supplement following that, and then we'll go over to the committee. Fire away, please, Sue.
Thanks, Chairman. Just to notify you as well, Councillor King's just returned as well, so we're all here. Don't expect to spend long going through this because it's the work of the committee, so I'm sure you're all familiar with the contents in the report. So this is for you to consider and approve the annual report of your committee, which will be presented to the AGM on the 20th of May. So obviously any revisions that are made in today's meeting can be made after this meeting in collaboration with myself and Steve, and also the item which has been discussed today would be included in this as well, so that we've obviously got an inclusive report right up until the AGM. So we will be including something on the apprenticeship scheme that we've discussed today. So reading through, turning to the actual report at Appendix A on page 25. So there you've got the forward from your chairman, which I'm sure you've all looked through. And going on to page 29, just a little correction there from when I first wrote this. On the first paragraph, I'm sorry, I've got building work going on outside. Just a correction that there have been actually 4 meetings since this last was recommended. Can you all hear me? Because I've got drilling going on in my head. If so, I'll close the window. If not, okay. So there've actually been 4 meetings, including today's meeting. So I will correct that. And you can see there all the reviews that the committee's undertaken since it was last reported to council last July. So there we've got the staff turnover, which is currently still undergoing the scrutiny through the time and task panel. You'll recall that in November, you looked at the relocation of the one-team service areas and the affordable housing delivery. In January, you looked at early intervention and community safety and apprenticeships. We had a first report from that, and today obviously we've looked at apprenticeships. At the bottom of page 29, I did include there that we were going to look at leisure principles, but obviously that will be for the June meeting, so that will come off this report and on to next year's. Over the page, on page 30, you've got details of where you've scrutinised cabinets, and particularly of note is the call-in that you had to do with the member grant scheme. So I have kind of summarised that there. The report goes on to list the training that you recently had and membership of the committee, and also the support that's given to the committee in the form of officers. Turning to Appendix B on page 33, there I've just listed all the recommendations, not just the ones that we've changed, but also the ones that we as a committee didn't change, that went to Cabinet, and whether or not, you can see on there whether or not the committee were aligned in the decisions there that they've recommended, as opposed to the Cabinet decisions, and any comments in there. So that's really it. So unless Steve's got anything to add, because it's ultimately his report.
Thank you. So yeah, Sue drafted up the report, and then we just worked it through together in terms of some amendments, etc. So and I would just like to compliment Sue actually, because the first draft, I have to say, was very well laid out, and I was ONS chair going back in 2013, and I have to say it's an improvement, and I'd just like to compliment you, Sue, on that, by the way. And there was amendments as we went, and we really worked it through together. So good sort of team effort there. But your original draft, Sue, I thought was brilliant, by the way. And it's over to you, committee. Are you happy with the report as it is? Do you want to amend anything else? Of course, we will amend the apprenticeship in today, as Sue said. It's very important. On timing in between now and May, if we do, then the exact wording will be down to Sue and me to sort out, because we don't have another meeting in between now and then anyway. So over to you.
We have Councillor
Sue?
Holland with a hand raised.
Sue?
Yes, thank you. This is very nitpicky. I'm sorry to do that, but the little graphic on the first page, it says on the right-hand side, enables the voice and concerns of the public. That didn't seem to quite make sense. I'm assuming it's a graphic that's picked up from somewhere unless you've constructed it. I don't know whether it should be to be heard or something on the end, or I don't know. It just didn't quite gel somehow.
I stole it from last year's. I have to own up to that one.
Sorry, it just doesn't quite, it doesn't sort of feel like a set, I don't know.
Sorry,
Maybe
so
just
could you
being
just help
nitpicky.
me? Could you just point to where? Sorry,
On the green graphic on page 25,
yeah.
on the right-hand side of the circle, the right-hand quarter, it says enables the voice and concerns of the public. And I feel like it ought to have something like to be heard, but everybody else looks as though they all think that makes perfect sense. So it must just be me. Sorry, ignore me. Thank you.
Okay. Right, so anyone else? No. Okie dokie. So with
I'll move the adoption of the report, Chairman.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. And of course, with the amendment we've got to put in from today's meeting, which I thought was excellent, by the way. Right, okay, so we'll put that to the vote. All those agree?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on now to item 10, Overview and Scrutiny Committee Work Programme, page 40. Again, Sue, if you'd like to take us through that, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, so turning to page 40, it waited for me to start. So turning to page 40, you can see there the first three items are the ones that, well, the first two items are the ones that we covered today. The third item, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to close my window. Just bear with me a second. Sorry, I can actually hear now without shouting. Right, okay, so the first two items are the ones we considered today. The principles of leisure, sorry, the provision of leisure principles, as discussed, we will move to the 15th of June meeting. Okay, so for that meeting, we will also have the bridge maintenance reserves, which is an item that was added back in December. As you'll recall, we were going to have that at the last meeting, but Phil Courtier had commissioned a resurvey on the council's bridges, so it was thought that it would be more timely to have that delivered at the June meeting, so they've got a chance to have a look at that report. Okay, so turning to page 41, also at that meeting, we hope to have a community safety update. As you recall from the last meeting, we had Amanda Muir, the head of community safety at Norfolk County Community Safety Partnership. So we're hoping to have another update from Amanda. That's yet to be confirmed with Amanda, so but I have asked her to come along to that meeting to give us an update. Okay, so moving onward then to our August meeting. Now in August, we hope to have, well, we've scheduled to have two items which have both been put forward for the work programme. The first one was put forward by Sprowston Parish Council. You'll recall we discussed this, I think it was the meeting before last, that Sprowston had asked for some guidance for town and parish councils in respect of public open spaces. So members agreed at that meeting that we would look to have something put in place for that meeting. I understand that an officer has recently or is in the process of being appointed to look at that particular area, so we're hoping to have that officer present at the meeting in August. And we've also got an item on there which was put forward at the last meeting by Councillor Shaw, which was engagement in public consultations. So you'll see that one, lead officer to be confirmed. I've yet to find a taker for that one, but I'm working on it. So I'm sure that one will be ready for August. Then moving on to November, which seems a long way away, but really isn't. Housing allocations policy. So this policy was implemented will be implemented in April. So we are looking to review this as the committee should do. So moving sort of 6 months down the line, we'll have a look and make sure that that's meeting its outcomes and objectives. We will also, after consultation with Steve, we have added here a review of member grants, because you'll recall that that's something that the committee chose to call in at a recent meeting. So what we'd like to do is get in nice and early with the next stage of that. So what the committee really wants to do is kind of review before, not just the week before Cabinet, but nice and early, that like we've discussed before, so that we can actually have some input into the councils before it reaches council and it's, sorry, Cabinet, and it's all kind of fairly set in stone. So that will give us adequate time to look at the member grant scheme in good time before it goes to Cabinet. Okay, so moving then to page 42. We've got at the top there, as you know, the staff turnover. The time and task panel is still in session on that, so that will be reported back to overview and scrutiny when it's concluded. We've also got on there, as you've seen before, we have actually emailed town and parish clerks, which is where the Sprouston item has come from, so that's been quite successful. We unfortunately did again miss Broadland News because there was an issue with the December edition, in that a lot of people didn't receive it, so the spring edition had to take into account a lot of the things that should be in the December edition. So unfortunately we have missed that, but we are down for the next edition of Broadland News to put an article in there detailing the good work and asking if the public do have any items that they would like the committee to look into. The next item on there, broadband and mobile phone coverage. You'll recall that Joe Coppleston was looking into getting an update from Better Broadband for Norfolk. Unfortunately, having checked in with Joe again, it has been further delayed due to COVID-19, and realistically, we're not going to get anything in that until the summer. So what Joe Coppleston is looking to do with Better Broadband for Norfolk is to get them in and to actually give an all-member briefing. So following that, obviously members of Scrutiny may wish to look at it further, or they may be satisfied at that point. So it stays on the work programme, but we're looking at an all-member briefing in the summer for that. Water supply, Joe Coppleston didn't have any updates for us. I was going to invite Ken Kelly to see if he had anything to add.
Nothing as yet on that one. So just to say that, you know, there is a high-level committee with Water Management East who is looking at that, and until they come up with a subjective report, then we won't have anything. But as soon as we get any updates, then Joe and myself will put a report forward to the committee.
Lovely, thanks, Ken. Okay, and lastly on there, we've got the council partnership register review, which is still on hold due to COVID-19. Just over the page, on the last page, you'll be pleased to note that we've just got the time and task panel review. The time and task panel did actually meet on the 2nd of March, and it will meet again on the 22nd of April with some more information. And then obviously you've got your way ahead in October, you've got meeting with to discuss budget performance that we put before Cabinet. So you've got that nice and early in October. And that is it. Oh, Steve, you're on mute.
Sorry, I forgot I'm muting myself because there was noise going on here as well. Yeah, so just before I hand back to the committee for their comments on this. So on the apprenticeship scheme, we've just agreed for the officers to do some work, come back to us on that one. So again, obviously we just need to update this Sue accordingly in that box for next time round. I can't really see anything else. So committee, can you see anything else we've missed or you need to amend here?
Councillor Nurden, I believe, wants to speak.
Right,
you're still on mute.
There we go. Thanks. Sorry. Just a quick one. I'm expecting a call back at 1:45, so it's I'll be leaving very quickly. The bridge maintenance reserve one on page 40. We're looking at that we've got reserves obviously for the maintenance of those bridges. I was just wondering whether it's not possible to add to that that we also look at the Reedham Quay, which is it's going to cost a couple of £100,000 work that's got to be done on that. I just want to make sure that we've got sufficient in our reserves for that. So I just wanted to ask if it's possible to have the Reedham Quay added to the bridge maintenance reserves topic.
Could I ask, I don't know if any officers present have got any information on this in Reedham Quay.
No, unfortunately, you're left with just me from senior management, Steve, and I've got no idea, I'm afraid. So I wouldn't want to commit to something not knowing where we are with it. But I can definitely take it away and find out what's going on because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Grant, it's just knowing because on the bridge maintenance we've discussed this a number of times and the need for that to come back in a clear report. As you said, there's a survey now being done on the bridges, which is excellent because that's actually really well needed. I'm aware of the one down at Coltshill that's had damage on it for quite some time, and residents are really worried about it. So that survey, that's all really clear. This Reedham Quay one, I don't know where that is in a programme to be repaired. Is it being repaired? You seem to have some knowledge on this, Grant.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago that Richard Block actually was looking at a three body, the Broads Authority, Broadland Council and the local parish council, looking at trying to figure out how we were going to fund the necessary work that needed to be done on that. So I just want to be satisfied that we have got sufficient in our reserves for this kind of capital work that needs to be done. So I know bridges are a huge expense, but this is also one of our assets that I'm a little concerned about. Yeah.
Okay, so basically then, because we, this is the work program, we can discuss about adding things, etc., amending whatever. However, what I'm going to suggest, and see if you're happy with this as well, Emma, as well, just processing this, is that what we could do from today's meeting is agree that that an inquiry should be made through. I think it's Phil's house, so to speak. Make an inquiry through to Phil to see and get some kind of response back in terms of where are they in terms of repairs of that, and then that could come back to a meeting, and then if necessary put it on the work programme from that information.
I think probably, Chair, I'm almost there on agreement. I think probably I will absolutely ask Phil for that and to then email around that to members so that you've got that information. And then when we have the next overview and scrutiny, you can reflect on the email that you've received back and then decide what you want to do with the work programme. At least then you're getting an answer in a bit quicker.
Yeah. Is that okay, Grant? Brilliant. Okie dokie. Right, so we've got a way through that. I think it's right in terms of government as well. Sue Catchpole.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not entirely sure that this sits with ONS, and maybe I'll take your guidance on that. But there's been indications that moves are afoot to look at possible future locations for Broadland District Council offices. And what I'd really be interested in is it down to ONS to ask for a review of the impact or the potential impact on residents of moving Broadland District offices outside of the district? Is that something ONS should pick up on?
Well, again, I'm going to have to ask them to come back in on this. I think that ONS can investigate things that are relevant in terms of service policy, service delivery, etc. So we can that general umbrella. However, of course, we need to know is there actually plans afoot for that? Is it, and where it's at? Is that a likelihood or not? Because otherwise, we can't really scrutinise something that is a bit of a cloud at the moment, and we can't grasp it in terms of any decision. So a bit of an awkward one, Emma. But at the moment, logistically, in terms of any communications around this, the likelihood of moving. Very awkward question for you. Is there any sort of firm proposals that you're aware of coming forward?
I think at the moment we would be very early to be looking at that, Steve. You're right. I mean, we're only just starting to think about bringing staff back to the office. We've had skeleton staff at both locations, so we're only just kind of starting to look at what does that return to work look like. We'll have a much more agile workforce. We will also have COVID in place for a while, where we'll have to social distance within the office. Then we may not have post-June, or we're kind of in that area of we don't really know kind of where everything's going. So we are looking at and trying to get a handle on what it is that we will need for our officers. But at the moment, it's such early doors and such early thoughts. But notwithstanding, I think at the right point in time, I think Councillor Catchpole, you make a good point. But I think at the moment there wouldn't be anything of any kind of grounding to be able to bring to you. But I think it's one to bear in mind going forward as things progress or not.
Can I just come back?
Yeah.
I'm just a bit concerned that we missed the boat. So it's a bit chicken and egg. If we don't find out and establish what impact it will have on the residents, that if that became the case that it would have a negative impact on our service, that needs to be fed into the decisions over whether to look for premises outside of the district. So
yeah, and I absolutely don't disagree with you, but as I said, we are so early doors with thinking about this that I wouldn't have anything kind of tangible to bring to you, but we absolutely will keep you in the loop as that progresses, and then we'll keep you involved like we do with the members' bulletins and all member briefings, so that you'll know where we are and where we're progressing. But to provide you with assurance, that kind of stuff, if we are making a decision around that, would absolutely be part of what we would look at. There's a whole plethora of kind of benefits, risks, etc., that we would need to weigh up, but we are, as I say, extremely early doors even thinking about that.
I'm just putting my my elephant memory back into place again. As you know, Emma, it's normally quite good. If you go back 3-4 meetings ago when we raised the issue, the ONS actually requested the meeting for Sean and Trevor to attend, Emma, if you recall, on the moving of the planning department down to be housed at South Norfolk. One of the outcomes from that was that Trevor gave a commitment that early doors, and if there's anything outside of what was perceived to be the normal run of committees moving forward, then there was a commitment this minute as well that he committed that it'd come back to ONS. If there was an oddball situation like that, this may well fit into that oddball situation. So just reminding the admin that is there and Trevor committed to it. So this might fit into the oddball situation as you move forward to come back to ONS.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Steve. I'm remembering that conversation. I think we talked about novel and contentious.
Yeah, novel and
items.
contentious.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. Novel and contentious.
Yep.
So, Sue, I don't know if you recall that, but that was a commitment that was given on novel and contentious to come back to us, and we did get that agreed. It was an outcome of that bit of scrutiny, actually. Trevor committed back on. So hopefully, under that umbrella, something can come back early enough that it's tangible for us to, and use that from that commitment was given at that meeting.
Yeah, thanks.
And we could just sum up a little minute around this now, couldn't we? Yeah, so we're not putting anything in the work program. We can just have a little minute to reflect this discussion we've just had. James, okay?
Yes, absolutely, Chairman.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so okay.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anything else on the work program? Try to switch my screens, flip my screens. No, no. Okay, so I'll put that to the notes. Work program, as we said, with the amendments that we've talked about, particularly on the apprenticeship scheme. All in favour? That's unanimous. Chairman. Thank you. And I believe that brings us to the end of the meeting. Am I all right, James? Just checking.
Yes, it does, Chairman.
Thanks very much. Well, thanks very much. And also for the scrutiny today. I thought it was excellent.